Well, welcome everybody to this week's Marriage Gone Divorce. We're grateful to have you here today. This is a pre-recorded broadcast, but we still want to make sure that you are engaging with us. Please leave your comments in the comment section. And then as always, afterwards, come on over to um, Patreon, and we're going to have some conversations with you in Patreon. But let's pause right now to get us centered and in the moment, and take a few breaths. Okay, to bring us present to right now. Take a deep inhale, hold, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale through the mouth. Yes. Take another deep inhale. Hold. 2, 3, 1, and exhale through the mouth. Is that breath that reminds us whose and whom's we are. We are not an accident. No matter what you've been through, how many times you went through it, and who told you wasn't going to get through it. That breath reminds you that you are created in the image and after the likeness of the creator of all life. And that means that the creator is big, bad, bold enough to create me distinctly different from you, and we still all be in his image. So with that said, let's take one more deep inhale so that we are fully present so we can have this powerful discussion. Take another deep inhale. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 1, and exhale. Again, welcome. We have a dynamic guest that I met on Instagram. She has a really awesome platform, and I want to give us an opportunity to have all the time that we need to kind of discuss and talk about her background, talk about how she has gotten to the place that she is. So I want to welcome Jewel to the stage, Jewel Brown to the stage. So is Jewel Brown or Siobhan? Which one there we go. Is it Jewel? Okay. So welcome. And thank you for accepting the invitation to come on Marriage Gone Divorce. So thank you for that. She has I'm going to, yes, you're very welcome. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are right now. And then we will go from there.
Okay, sure. So I was married for about 16 years, and I went through a divorce. And in the midst of that divorce, I had my challenges just like anybody would. But it wasn't until I made that decision to divorce is when I started kind of coming into myself and realizing who and whose I was, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started off by doing infidelity coaching, which I not necessarily partnered, but I was asked to lead in this program that my ex-spouse and I had been through. So we had experienced infidelity, and we had recovered from that. And we started, and so that's how I started in the coaching space. And so, not knowing that I was going to get divorced, I kind of went on my own little journey myself. And so I got a life coach myself, and, just helping me get through that. And he said, why are you working for somebody else? Why aren't you you're able to do this. You can help people. And so I procrastinated for a little bit because I just didn't believe that my story could help somebody. Because for one, I carried a lot of shame with my story and my experience. I carried a lot of shame for some of the things that I allowed, just embarrassed that I didn't even have the worthiness to stand up for myself or to, just to vouch for myself, basically. So, it took me a while to get there, but I'm here and I am ready to, serve in full capacity. And I have no shame in my experience because I know that's not who I am. And I do know who I am and I know whose I am. And that's something that nobody can take from me. And I just want women to see that for themselves. Like, see, I want them to see and know what we know.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, Joy, I would like to, you said a mouthful. Okay. I want to unpack some of the things that you were married for 16 years. Do you have children?
Yes, I have 5 children, which makes
Oh,
it kind
wow.
of crazy. Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Okay.
So my oldest is 20 all the way down to 8.
Okay. Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
So, how old was your youngest when you finally divorced, finally made the choice and decision to divorce? I guess either both of you did, or however that, how
Mhm.
did that, because when you have what I want, as you know, when children are involved, it adds another layer of challenge.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that was a very, very hard decision for me to make. And I absolutely considered my children in the process. And to answer your question, my youngest was, I think he was 3 when
Okay.
I decided to divorce. And my oldest, I believe she was maybe about 15 or 16 at the
Okay.
time.
Okay. So you've been divorced for about 5 years.
For, I think 4 now, 4 or 5 years.
Okay, 4 or 5 years. Okay, awesome. So you talked about the shame, getting through the shame. First of
Mhm.
all, the shame, the embarrassment, and the guilt, and that you guys personally went through. You recovered. Your words were, you recovered from infidelity. How do you recover from infidelity and still divorce?
Yes. So, um, with the company that I work with, which I won't say much about, but I will say that it is possible because I had done it myself, and I see couples do it all the time. And I think it is not an easy decision to make because there has to be, both partners have to be willing to do the work because there's the individual, like, there's 3 recoveries that have to happen. There's
Mm-hmm.
the individual recoveries of both people, and then there's the recovery of the marriage. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I see people recover all the time, but again, it has to be both parties willing to do the work. As far as my personal story, I don't share like details because
That's
when I
fine. You have
share my
children. I understand.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and when I share my story, I also share somebody else's story, and so I
Mm-hmm.
like to protect people's integrity. But I will say,
I love that.
um,
Yeah.
I seen that there was. I seen we could only go so far.
Mm-hmm.
We can only go so far when it comes to integrity, when it comes to morality. And that's kind of what was the infidelity was just a symptom of that. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't
So
the
let me ask
infidelity.
you. Let me ask you this. I'm sorry. So infidelity is a symptom of
Infidelity is just a
morality.
infidelity is just a symptom of something else that's really going on internally
Got it.
within people. It's never necessarily. I mean, we think it's about the act, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not denying that. It doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not. That I'm not saying it's good or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just a symptom of other problems in the marriage, deeper rooted problems in the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when I seen that those deeper rooted problems were starting to come back up, and patterns were starting to emerge
Mm-hmm.
again, I said, I can't do this again.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
made the decision to end it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when I did, I had to do that internally. It took about a year for me to make the decision. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of something I kind of entertained in my mind, and things weren't good, but it was just kind of something I entertained. And I mean, you know, you have problems in marriage, you have challenges. And so I was kind of like, all right, so what is like normal challenges in a marriage and what is like this thing is done? So I had to
Mm-hmm.
sort that out with myself. But it wasn't until I came to the point where I just said, we can't go any further. we can't go any further. And that was something that grieved my heart uh, really bad, and I really struggle with that. And so I actually grieved while I was still in the marriage, because I
Mhm,
just knew and I knew that things wouldn't change, and things did
mhm,
start to get worse. And so that kind of confirmed that I made the right
mhm,
decision. And even after
mhm,
divorce, I'll never bash my ex-spouse. I think he's a wonderful person. He's a wonderful father, but I do know that people do the best they can. And sometimes we expect things from people that they just can't deliver on.
mhm, mhm. Okay, I love this. Okay, so you talked about how, and I love this, the action of infidelity, or the action, and I want to, so those that are listening and that will listen to this, to this broadcast can hear, is of a deeper issue, individual deeper issue that has come to collective in a marriage. I hope that makes sense to everybody that I'm saying. So it's a personal issue, and now you're married, and it's coming out in the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say? Because I also, let me say this, that I believe it's a possibility, based on what I've heard previous guests say on the broadcast, is that it wasn't necessary, infidelity wasn't the issue in some cases. It was, now there's a child involved. The infidelity produced a child.
Yeah.
That, yeah. So, or that the infidelity, and then there was abusive actions in terms of emotional and emotional abuse. Yeah, emotional abuse, the withholding, and
Yeah.
etc. So what would you say are some of the deeper issues that oftentimes show up in a marriage um, when infidelity
That can,
occurs? Hmm.
mhm. In my experience, I find that unworthiness, a lot of
Mm,
childhood trauma, people that are looking for validation, people that are, and this is a buzz term, but like your typical like narcissist. A lot of people
I
say it's
know it is. Yeah.
narcissism, but yeah, those people who have those
Hmm.
characteristics are,
Hmm.
typically what I see. And also, and sometimes some people just make choices that are,
Not
you know,
healthy.
they yeah, they just make choices
Hmm.
like that. And I find a lot of times I see couples, when that happens, you kind of are like drifting apart, but
Hmm.
and it's like it, but you
Hmm.
haven't really had a chance to address it, and you've been kind
Hmm.
of just living on autopilot and
Hmm.
living parallel lives almost, and then boom, the infidelity happens, and you're like,
Hmm.
what happened?
Hmm.
But it's like there was already problems beforehand, and that's not
Hmm.
to say some people aren't completely blindsided by it, because that does happen as well. But a lot
Hmm.
of times, people know that there are issues and problems present,
Hmm.
and
Would
then
you say
but
some
then
of
they
those issues are would you say some of those issues are communication, being able to communicate authentically about what one is feeling and where they are, and
oh yeah. Definitely
mhm,
the communication, like you mentioned, and also holding safe space for each other, because
mm,
a lot of times,
mhm,
we have something to say, but our partner doesn't really have the capacity to receive what
mhm,
we have to say without,
mhm,
becoming defensive, or, um, yeah, just like wanting to get their point across and not really listening.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. That's so true. I was sharing with a client that I had was speaking with earlier this week, and I said one of the things when you talk about truth, that one has to feel safe, and the reason many times there's lies or untruths because one does not feel safe in revealing the truth. Now it doesn't validate whether it's wrong or right, but you're absolutely correct. You have to feel safe. You mentioned also about the bashing. When I liked hearing that, because this podcast, we are not about bashing a male or female, husband or wife.
Mhm.
However, we like to give space to talk about red flags. And oftentimes, I know when we first kicked off the show, we talked about, what are red flags? What are some of the red flags on the onset before getting married that one can pay attention to?
Yeah. Are you asking me personally?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes.
So, oh my gosh, I feel like social media has really just kind of like skewed things, put a filter on, red flags. I feel like we all have red flags because
Hmm.
all of us have been through something, right? So I feel like all of us have red flags. But I feel like there are things that I feel like you have to figure out which red flags you can live with, you can accept, because
Hmm.
nobody's perfect, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm,
to answer your question, as far as red flags, I think that integrity is so big for me. I think
mhm,
also, does that person have the worthiness themselves? Or are they looking for that validation in you or somebody else? Because when they won't get it from you, they're going to go looking for it from somebody
mhm,
else. So,
mhm,
a person that feels like you can complete them is a
hmm,
red flag to me because it puts a lot of pressure on you. It puts a lot of pressure on you
mhm,
to be everything to them. And when you can't, when you're just being a human being and you disappoint them, it
mhm,
shatters their world. And sometimes, they go out looking for that in somebody else.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Looking for, and last week we talked about, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Um, the expectation, you kind of talked about that a little bit already, but the expectations we have around marriage are, is it or are they real? Is it livable? Is that what's destroying our marriages because of the false or in just false expectations? What do you think about that
Right.
in terms of marriage? Do we need to revisit how we see marriage?
I think we do because there is no manual. And people say that the Bible is a manual for marriage, and there are some things that model marriage in the Bible. But from
Uh-oh, we're
is
losing you.
a
Wait a minute, we're losing
um,
you. Wait just a minute. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, I'm going to take you down and pull you back. Yeah, let's see what's going on. Okay, say something now.
can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Um, but I was saying, just from a day to day interaction with each other, like learn how to blend with each other, but also still maintain like, your individuality. Like nobody really teaches you how to do that. And um, most people, when you get married for the first time, it's like we only know what we've seen based off what culture we come from, what generation we were born in, just like our social economic status, all of those things affect how we see marriage. And so I think, I'm sorry, my alarm is going off.
It's okay. Hmm.
But yeah, all of those things affect how we see marriage. And so we can only go off of what we know, right? And if you don't have those healthy examples, then you got to kind of figure it out yourself. And in my case, I never really had an example of what that looked like because my
Hmm.
mom, she didn't marry until I was 18. And, when I was 18, I was out the door, went to college, and I wasn't worried. I wasn't studying her. But
Right.
also, my ex spouse came from a two-parent household, and parents were married for I don't know, 20, 30 years or whatever. And so I kind of seen okay, that's maybe what a family looks like or whatever. But every family has their own internal issues, and once you start to get an internal look into families, you kind of see um, their ways. But again, in people's defense, like we don't really have a what is it modeled after?
Mm-hmm.
What's it modeled
Mm-hmm.
after? And so I think those things that I mentioned, those affect how we see marriage. Maybe your parents were divorced, and and you're like, you have this perception. You could either say, I'm not getting married because I've seen what my parents went through, or you can say, I'm going to get married and I'm going to do it 100 times better than my parents. I'm going to show them how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, it's a lot of factors that influence how we see marriage.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's good. Awesome. What would you tell your younger self? If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be?
I would tell her that anything anybody does, it doesn't say anything about your worth. It says more about them and their character. It doesn't have anything to do with your value or your worth. It's never
Mm-hmm.
personal, it's just their choices. And I would also tell her that she's worthy of everything that she desires. Everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would you say to the young lady, young man that's listening to you now that is preparing to get married?
Mm. Wow. I would tell them to first honor yourself, because there is no way that you can honor your spouse unless you honor yourself. I will tell them there is no way that your spouse can complete you. You are already whole within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, your spouse is not going to complete you. Your spouse is going to disappoint you.
Mm-hmm.
And, your spouse is a human. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a lot of times we have expectations as far as, I want this, this, and this. Um, but it just puts a lot of pressure on your spouse. I would also tell them to enjoy your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
make it fun. And they say, like the whole "don't go to bed mad."
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when you figure, basically what I'm saying is, like, y'all figure out what works for you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you are mad and you need to go to bed, because it's not, like, you need to go to bed.
You need to go to sleep. No.
You need to go to bed. Yeah, just restart in the morning. Press restart. Yeah, so I would say find what works, find what works for you. Also, it's okay to also find some inspiring couples, um, and just get inspiration for the good things that you admire in their marriage. But also, sometimes we don't see what it took those couples to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we don't, we see the result, but we don't see the work it took to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like against marriage. I would say enjoy your marriage, enjoy your
Mm-hmm.
partner, learn and grow together. And just know that, whatever you guys experience along the way, as long as you guys are holding safe space for each other, and, you just have this, like, I got your back. I think,
Mm-hmm.
I think you can make something happen
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, I
Create
like that.
legacy. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So, what would you tell a young man or young woman that is considering divorcing their partner or in the throes of a divorce right now?
Mhm.
And what would you share?
Yeah. I would tell that person to really consider the cost of your decision. I would tell that person to take your time with that decision, and know that there is going to be fear along the way. But you also have to, excuse me, you also you have to stare that fear in the face, because if you are considering a divorce, then that means that things aren't going well, right? But then also, so things are hard, but divorce is hard as well. So you're going to have to choose your hard. Also, take your time. And I feel that this decision is one of those things where it's when you know, you know. People ask me, like, how did you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when I knew, I knew. And it made me really sad because I knew that it was like I just knew.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. I knew our time together as a union had come to an end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's
Right.
what I was.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, last but not least, what can you leave with the audience in terms of the healing process and healing journey, um, after during the divorce and after the divorce, more after, because like you said, there's a grieving process. The grieving starts before the divorce, especially when you know it's got to happen, and you've exhausted, all that you know to do. You prayed, you fasted,
Mhm.
you sought counsel, you shut your mouth, opened your mouth, close your legs, open your legs. I mean, that was a joke, laugh. No,
No, no, I
but
can't.
it's the truth. But it's the truth. Open
Right.
your legs, close your legs, hung from a chandelier, but this is just not gonna work.
You know, that thing ain't thinking no more. So, okay, you said what would I tell them
The journey,
after?
yeah,
Okay.
the healing
Um,
process.
okay. Oh yeah. I would tell them it's not a linear process. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. And just because you have a bad day, that does not mean that you are not moving forward. You also
Good.
find some things that you need to grieve that you never even really considered.
Mm,
And when I say that, I mean like just the ripple effect of it.
mm, mhm,
Um, I would say get around a community, a loving community. A lot of people that have been through divorce, they do openly share their experience once they've kind of gotten to the other side of it, because you
mhm,
know what it's like, and it's one of those things. If you've never experienced it, you don't understand the detriment of the pain. And so, yeah, get around some people who have been through the same experience and, can kind of share their experience. And that kind of validates what we are feeling and just makes us feel seen and heard. And also just kind of figure out who you are outside of that union. Because if
mm.
you've been married, especially a long time, you become
Yeah.
enmeshed with a person,
Yes.
and you are that person's Mr. So and so, Mrs. So and so. And so
Yes.
you got to figure out like who were you created to be? Because when you got married and when you are divorcing, like you're not the same person. So you have to learn like who am I today, here, right now, in this moment.
Mhm,
Forgiveness. A
mm,
lot of people don't like to hear that one, but you have to forgive. And everybody does that in their own timing. Everybody's forgiveness process looks differently, but I will say forgiveness is one of the most liberating things that you can do because it takes you out of the victim mindset and it frees you from being a prisoner of your past. It frees you from being a prisoner of that person's actions towards you, like whatever reason why you want a divorce,
mm,
it really frees you and allows you to not become bitter.
mhm, mhm. What is forgiveness?
Forgiveness is counting, forgiveness is knowing that whatever happened, happened and it's not going to change. And I am releasing myself from the debt that I feel this
Mm,
person owes me.
mhm. Mhm. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Just one more thing. I can't leave this out here and not ask you. You talked about, and this is in the realm of forgiveness. You talked about the shame, guilt, and embarrassment. How do you overcome the shame, guilt, and it? Because that's big, that's huge. Because as you know, from a child, we are taught get married, have a family, children, you grow old together, you have grandchildren, and you're supposed to do it only one time.
Right.
But that is not what's happening. So how do you get through the shame, guilt, um, and embarrassment?
Yeah. So, what helped me get through that was knowing that this is my life experience. And, whatever grandma said, and, my parents or whatever, society even, this is my life. And I'm the one who is experiencing this. And
Mm,
so my decisions have nothing to do with anybody else, or even what happened to me has nothing to do with anybody else. And that's the reason I kind of waited to get divorced for so long, because I was just too worried about what other people thought. What we was church members, what's the church gonna think? What's my aunties and my uncles, my esteemed aunties and uncles, what they gonna think? I got 5 children. What people gonna think when I get divorced? When I was literally so embarrassed to be in public with my children without a ring on. So I think not not saying not caring, but just like other people's opinions, it don't matter, because
mm,
nobody knows what you went through to get to this
mm,
point. Nobody saw what was happening behind closed doors. Maybe you were experiencing some abuse or just some mistreatment, or like nobody knows what you felt and experienced inside. And so I think once I validated my own experience, it didn't matter what anybody else thought, because I'm not we done putting on a dog and pony show. And we do that so much for so many people, and I think that's what brings the shame and the embarrassment, because it's like, okay, we couldn't keep this together, or you feel like a failure, or you even like call yourself a failure. But I mean, the reality is everybody goes through things, and just knowing that like you did the best you could.
mm,
You did the best you could, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. That, and there's a lot of people on the social media, and they'll say like, you need to try harder. You need to. I did that.
pray harder.
Yeah, pray harder. Yeah, I did that. God,
Yeah.
God hates divorce. I struggled with that one for a long time.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
does God hate divorce, or does God hate what is going on in this marriage? Like, which is it? So do I stay and I'm not speaking myself personally, but does a person stay and continue to endure abuse all because God hates divorce? Well, doesn't God hate abuse as well? Like, so I
mhm,
think you just have to kind of come to an understanding with yourself and self-validating your experience, and not letting anybody else take that from you. Because again, these people, okay, let me say this. So the shame and the embarrassment is only from what we think other people will think about us.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
That's where that comes
That's good. Yeah, I'm so glad that we extended, because it's so important um, to have this discussion. And this is the part that dis kind of got disconnected when we had the little technical difficulty. Um, Forgiving self and coming to an understanding of what is marriage, and that a lot of our understanding of what is marriage based on a Christian outlook is a part of a very colonized mindset. And so when you understand that, it doesn't take away from your belief in God, your principles that you stand on. It doesn't take away from that, but it does call us, which is what this platform is. One of the intentions of this platform. It calls us to reevaluate and reconsider what it is we believe.
Yeah.
And are we believing things at the cost of who God called us to be,
Yes.
and saying it's God, justifying actions. And so I thank you for I think that was perfect. We have to really, challenge ourselves with that. We don't have the power to change one's will, another person's will. We have a hard time changing our own. So okay, we don't have that authority to do that.
Yeah.
God can do anything, but sometimes the cold fact of the matter, especially in the Christian world, my experience, I'm born, raised, groomed, in church, is that we get married out of lust, and we
Yeah.
call it love, and it
Exactly.
has nothing to do with love. Now, it's not to say that it can't grow and mature into love, but it has nothing to do with love. And so we may not even be compatible, in terms of outside
Exactly.
of the bedroom. And so then what? So when that when that fire cools off, because it will, then
Right.
what?
It will.
So we really have to
Exactly.
we really have to look at the so that and how God has given us um, the opportunity to define, to name, to
Hmm.
create what our marriages are to look like, and our families and our children and our future. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jewel. How do you go about dating? One more, I got one more, and then this. That's the
Whew.
other thing is, oh yeah, that one. See, I knew it.
Okay, so just to touch a little bit on what you said with the like, what would I tell a person who's going through a divorce? Like,
Yes.
uh, we call it seat filling. Like, don't be so quick to fill that seat, or that space in your bed. Put some snacks in the
Yeah.
bed for now and just kind of enjoy your time alone. And that's not to say you cannot still have a desire to share someone or to share your
Right.
life with someone. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think what I see is a lot of people, again, they're not really whole within themselves, and they're looking for somebody to fill that hole in their heart. They're looking for somebody to show me that I'm worthy, prove to me that I'm the prize. Like, prove to me, instead of, knowing I'm worthy, knowing you the prize, knowing your value. I think a lot of people it's a mess. Just keep it
Mhm.
simple. It is a mess, but I think also I feel like there's a gender war going on, because of course I wasn't in the dating world, and so I'm kind of observing things now, and things are very, very different now. And so I would
Mhm.
say, if you are to jump back out there again, we got a theme here: know who you are and know whose you are, because people these days are quick to tell you who you are. And if you don't know that, you're going to believe everything you hear.
Mhm. Mhm. Awesome. Good. Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's real talk right there. Put some
and
snacks in the bed. You heard it. Put some
yeah,
snacks in.
and
Whatever them
one more
snacks are, put
thing.
them next to.
Exactly. Just enjoy yourself a little bit. Also, one more thing, just enjoy the dating process. I feel like we are just in such a rush to attach ourselves to somebody. So also
Mhm.
enjoy the process.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, out of your schedule. I know you were 3 hours ahead. So that's why we pre-recorded, so the audience will know. Can you share, and it's not letting me, so I will definitely put it in a little bit later. Share where they can find you on social media. You mentioned that you were a coach, um, and etc. So share that information with the audience.
Sure. You can find me at it's Jewel V. It's Jewel Jewel dot vie on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube. It's one word, Jewel V one, and
Okay,
that's where you
awesome.
find me.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Again, thank you. This was I loved it. It was a dynamic conversation. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
First, thank you for having me here. I did enjoy this, and I love what you're doing because these conversations need to be had because again, there's so much shame and stigma, the shame, stigma, and guilt around divorce. We need to be talking about this from healthy. We need to hear this from healthy people.
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
love
Thank
what you're
you.
doing.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. I agree wholeheartedly, and that's the intention. And it's coming. We're still in our early stages, and I'm excited about what's happening and the desire. People saying, keep going. So,
Yes,
so I
yes,
thank you. Yeah, thank you again. Hopefully, sometime in the future, we can have you come back again. And again, thank you so much. All righty.
I love you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
So I want to say thank you. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for tuning in this evening. We will be over at patreon.com and we will see you on the next go round. Peace and blessings.